Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen, welcome back to Sunday morning in the old cookbook show. Today we're going to do a recipe out of this cookbook. This is the Shower Cookery Book, improved 8th edition, published in 1939 in Australia. This is an excellent all-round cookbook. It has tons of recipes in it, like it is jam-packed with recipes for all kinds of things. Not a lot of descriptions about the recipes. Very no-nonsense, straightforward approach to the recipes. And today we're going to make something called mock brain fritters. Now, we've cooked brains on the show in the past. And I got to tell you, I wasn't a fan of the cooked brains. I didn't like the texture. There wasn't really a whole lot of flavor to them. The flavor came from the stuff that you added in. And I'm looking at this recipe and I'm thinking, this could work for me. It's almost like the mock sausage patties that we made a while back that used grape nuts. So it asks to put some drippings in a pot. I've got those in there, they're melted. I've got a tiny little bit of onion, so that goes in, and we're supposed to fry it just until it softens. The recipe tells us not to let it brown, so I've added a little bit of salt. I'm going to add some pepper. Most of the flavor in this dish really comes from the drippings, so I'm using bacon drippings, and I mean that looks pretty good. It's softened, and I don't want to cook it too much. I don't want to really get any color on there because the recipe tells me not to. So I'm going to add in, this is some hot water, and I need to bring this up to a boil. And if you start it with hot water, it comes to a boil really quickly. Now we add rolled oats. And I'll just give that a little bit of a stir. Now, we're supposed to boil this for half an hour. So I'm going to turn the heat down to just that it's barely boiling. And I'm assuming since we're going to cook this for half an hour, I should put a lid on it because I don't want all of the moisture to boil off right away. We're going to boil this, I would think, completely to mush. So I'll see you back here in half an hour. Okay, after 30 minutes of boiling, it's not quite as mushy as I thought it was going to be. So let's move on. So what I'm supposed to do now is spread this out on a plate and let it cool. So we'll get it out. Spread it out. And we'll come back when it's cool enough to handle. Now, I'm supposed to portion this out into round patties. Doesn't really say how big, so we'll just, I don't know, that big maybe? And then I'm supposed to dip the patty in some egg and then some breadcrumbs and then fry it in some smoking hot fat. And a lot of the flavor, I imagine, is coming from the fat that you fried in. I'm using bacon grease again. And so we'll just flip these over. Oh, nice and brown.
Hey, Glenn. Hey,
Jules.
friends. Burgers? Veggie burgers?
Mock brains.
Mock brains. They look like at first I thought they looked like burgers.
Yep.
Like a breaded chicken.
Yep. No.
Mock brains.
So I'm supposed to cook these with smoking hot fat.
Okay, yeah, I can see the smoking part.
You sort of run that risk of halfway between burnt and yeah.
Well, okay, so we've had brains.
Yes.
And I vaguely remember them being kind of soft and mushy.
Yeah,
and not this texture, which I find this interesting.
So I mean, there are recipes in here for brain fritters where you use a brain and you basically go through the same process and then fry it. This is just oatmeal.
Well, you know, maybe it's the texture inside because it's got that kind of ripply.
Yeah.
I can't think of the right word for.
Oh, how brains are folded back in on themselves? Yeah, yeah.
This is. Okay.
Yeah. It tastes like oatmeal fried in bacon fat.
I think I would put some jam on it. Because it's kind of, it's oatmeal.
It is just oatmeal.
It's oatmeal without the maple syrup or the sugar, brown sugar or the fruit or whatever it is you put in your oatmeal.
But you could take this completely in the savory direction because there's only salt.
Oh, I hadn't considered that.
There's only salt and pepper in here, right? So this
You could fill it with all sorts of...
So I was thinking to the mock sausage patties that we did with grape nuts.
Those were good.
Those were good. And
Those
so
were really good.
if you put that type of spicing or herbs into it, because right now it is exceedingly plain.
It could be a veggie
It could be a
substitute
yeah.
for a lot of different things.
So don't use the bacon fat. Use
Well, yeah, that point, but yeah,
Right.
I do miss that point.
yeah. Don't use the bacon fat. You don't dip it in the egg. The recipe says you could dip it in egg or milk, so you could dip it in almond milk. I think you just have to get the outside wet so the breadcrumbs stick. And then take it completely in a savory direction with, poultry seasoning, which I think I'd really like.
Yes, you would. Yes, you would.
But you could do all kinds of things to it.
Fennel.
Yeah.
With hot, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a good, like a lot of recipes from the 1930s, it's a good starting point that you could take in a new direction. And they probably expected the home cook to add that little bit of flair themselves. So, mock brains. I would say mock brains are definitely better than real brains.
Yeah, definitely better than real brains.
Yes.
Perhaps better than you thought they were going to be.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a great vehicle.
But
A little bit plain.
as is.
A little bit plain. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.
Definitely fried.
Yeah.